It is impossible to live in 2022 without using plastics. In order to understand our inextricable connection to one of the planet's most influential and devastating inventions, it's important to look back at history to realize that plastic was created recently. Before we get into this video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Every time you support my videos, it helps my platform and hopefully it helps others to learn more about environmental education with me. Thank you so much. Plastic was created in 1905 by Leo Baekeland. Even then, it contained no molecules found in nature, and Baekeland was finding alternatives for natural electric insulators to meet the demand for electrical equipment in the United States. He developed plastics that was suited for mechanical purposes. However, that led to research companies wanting to invest in polymer production. During World War II, the country was focused on saving resources for the war effort. That eventually led to the government to increase the demand for plastic for a multitude of weapons, gear, and other products. And during the war, the US saw a 300% increase in plastic production. Yikes. Since the 1960s, plastic use has increased dramatically. We use more than 8.3 billion tons of plastic worldwide annually, and only 9% of which effectively gets recycled, which is disappointing to see. That's more than 6.3 billion tons of waste. Later in the 1960s, the environmental movement recognized the dangers of plastic and curbside pickup programs because many commonplace in many urban and suburban areas were lacking infrastructure. But the programs were only meant to help mitigate the situation that still allowed corporations to create cheap, disposable, and single-use products that flooded the waste stream without a penalty or tax. According to a recent study by the EPA, containers and plastic packaging amounted to the highest tonnage found in municipal solid waste facilities. Recycling will not cure our plastic crisis. In fact, despite recycling education being at an all-time high, things are only going to get worse. A recent study showed that by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the ocean. Yikes. In an effort to address how consumers were dealing with plastics in their lives, the zero waste lifestyle grew popular in 2012, which I did a video on. Many zero waste bloggers emphasize the importance of consciously reducing waste, and zero waste was originally defined by the Zero Waste International Alliance back in 2002 and later refined in 2018 as the responsible production of materials, packaging, and sourcing without having negative and environmental impacts on ecosystems and communities. While the zero waste movement is often seen as a privileged lifestyle choice, many followers also encourage people to also use what they already have in their homes. Most often not, many people use products only one time and are not creatively thinking of ways how to reuse a product before sending it to the landfill. And the zero waste lifestyle encourages individual responsibility while also seeking to hold accountable the oil industry that develops the plastic at such mass volumes that they create islands of waste. In fact, in an effort to shift responsibilities to consumers, many oil conglomerates have been investing in more recycling and waste management programs, which is cheaper for them than making broad-scale changes that actually address the root of the problem. And this is why I got into zero waste living. For me, I really saw an opportunity to advocate for individual and systemic change. So while mitigating plastic use and finding new creative use of your plastics is a start, nothing will fundamentally change until we have elected leaders who take the environmental issues seriously. There's a term known as Eco-Ableism that often is put onto people who are disabled and shames them for using plastic usage. Something I really want to clarify and to be inclusive in this movement is that in our journeys to abolish petrochemical industries that have directly disproportionately affected low-income BIPOC communities, that we're also inclusive in understanding that we're not trying to remove the products that many people with disabilities use. Instead, we're trying to find a way to create a system that is just and whole and centered on holistic earth. Some things that you can easily do is number one, vote. Support politicians who take environmental issues seriously and down the ballot box. Number two, plastic water bottles to pots. Cut a medium-sized square hole in the middle part of the central section and fill it up with soil and grow your plants in it. Not only do you save money from buying pots, but you also prevent plastic from entering the landfill. Don't forget to poke small holes at the bottom to allow excess water to drain out. I personally have been using them whenever I garden for every season. Number 3, liquid jug jars to office containers. Need to store documents, papers, or books? Cut half of the part from a jug to make a container. It comes in handy without having to buy one at a store. The next thing is plastic bags to reusable bag. This one is my favorite. If you forget your reusable bags and paper bags aren't available, repurpose your plastic bag and use wax paper and iron to create a new reusable bag. I personally love doing this. I did one back a few years ago. The next thing is plastic takeout containers to pencil/pen box. So many of us are guilty of going out and buying food that generally goes to waste, right? While many people reuse it to store their next meals, you can also opt in by using it as a case to store your pencils and pens that are left lying around your home. Therefore, you get to avoid any of the toxic chemicals that may leach onto the container. Number 6 is plastic container lids to wall art, right? Have you ever considered to design your own art piece but wanted to save your own money? Well, you can collect all of your old plastic container lids to create a collage of colors and design using them. I really hope that these tips help you in trying to find ways to get innovative with your plastic while you're advocating for systemic change, and know that it is completely normal to use plastic as someone who also uses plastic and is actively reducing my waste.